But I remember grading a paper like, I have seen this before. It was probably 3 years prior.
Plagiarism is a huge phenomenon in higher education.
I think BYU would rather have me just automatically report them absolute, egregious, and you should follow some type of protocol. I just think I'd rather not ruin someone's life in a lot of ways.
You're listening to the Unfiltered Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to the Unfiltered Talk Podcast. Very excited about this episode here. We have Professor Smailes, David Smailes from BYU. Really quick, I just want to dive into your professional background, your education, and what kind of leads up to your career path.
Yeah, so stumbled into the career field that I'm in now, but started at BYU in 2003. I think I applied 6 times to get in, and I got rejected all 6 times. Wow. This is no joke. I remember getting, in 2 days after that, I got an acceptance letter. So I got a rejection letter in 2003, and then 2 days later, I got an acceptance letter. I still never questioned it. Yeah. But then I went to BYU, studied recreation management. I was going to go into tourism, and then ended up going to SU, getting a master's, and then I went to Harvard University, getting a master's there. So 2 master's degrees, which I don't recommend. Then I got a doctorate from Vanderbilt in leadership and learning. So to pay for all that schooling, my dad was a logger growing up in Northern California, so not your typical California.
Right.
To pay for all that schooling, I had to go and I sold door to door, which a lot of people do. I don't know if you've done it, or at least you're familiar with it.
No, I've not done door to door. I've not been blessed with.
Cursed or blessed. I don't know which one it is, but I became really good at it. And then after becoming really good at it, which took me a long time, I started training people how to do it. And then I started getting my education in training and leadership. And then now I do executive coaching and consulting with executives typically. Something I do on the side that a lot of people don't know about is I do college admissions consulting. So I help people get into top colleges, which people don't realize is happening behind the scenes all the time. So I do that on the side, but typically don't advertise that one as much. But yeah.
Is there a reason why you don't advertise it as much?
Well, I think I put it on my LinkedIn once, and I just had a ton of demand, like people hitting me up, hey, can you help me get into this school? And I realized I just couldn't, serve that many people, so I just kind of do it off to the side still. But
makes sense.
It's kind of an interesting component. So when I was at Harvard, I interned in the admissions office, and so I did that at Tufts University, which is just down the street, and I learned how the admissions process works from that angle, and then I started helping people do it. So
okay, you had mentioned tourism. What? Explain really quick that industry and what got you into it initially.
Yeah, I think it was more of the opposite of working in a cubicle. Like that's what I thought business was growing up. I thought, okay, well, I don't want to sit in a cubicle. I couldn't sit still in school, and so I thought, what's the opposite of that? It still could be fun, and so that's the path I took.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, this is outside. This is different. It's not logging still, but so tourism was kind of the path I was taking for a little while.
What kind of professions or career paths can you take in tourism? Is that strictly, gosh, I don't even know. Is that booking executive level?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what I think of when I think of tourism.
Yeah. So at the time it was more working at a resort. So I worked at a little ranch in southern Utah, which is where I met my wife. And at the time I had an internship that I could have done in South Carolina, which was at Hilton Head Island, which was helping people kind of working on a resort and then just being a guide. And some people own businesses, but yeah, I thought it was fun at the time. I thought this was a blast. People on vacation are really happy, and so being around people like that. So
yeah, well, I would say most of them are. Some of them are still thinking about their job back home that they have to take time for. I was the number of times that I've taken vacation, I can't even imagine, or I can't even remember how stressed, just the level of stress. Just because, especially if you're working a sales job, right? It's commission based. You have to be putting in hours in order to close deals. And if deals aren't being closed, you don't get paid, right?
Right.
Oh, man.
You eat what you kill kind of mentality in sales, which talk about the complete opposite when you sell door to door. It's you only make money if you sell. So it's very stressful. But when I worked on this ranch, I learned how to line dance. I had to drive people in tractors. We just did all sorts of fun things, and it was a blast. And then, then I ended up doing sales, which took me on the training path. And then I became more of, they call it learning and development, which is, a lot of people ask me what that is. It's think of a president of a school or principal of a school, think of a company having its own school within inside of it.
Right.
So I kind of run that school and make sure people are learning as best as they can.
That's awesome.
So, but yeah, it's not to turn the tables, but family sciences. I don't know if your audience knows that Aleme is a family science major, family studies.
Family studies, yeah.
So what is what are you hoping to do with that? And how does this cross over into this world here?
Completely honest, I needed a diploma.
Hey, that is understandable.
Needed a diploma, but I think also there was a personal interest that I had in like family systems, especially because I come from a divorced home, right? My mom and dad divorced twice.
Twice.
My mom
Did they get remarried to each other?
They did.
Wow.
Yeah, they got remarried.
So you had to go through this 2 times.
It was a really weird process because when they first got divorced, I was about 8, maybe 9 years old. And at that time, didn't really understand. All I knew was that I sometimes stayed with dad and sometimes stayed with mom. As the years went on, I think they got remarried maybe a year and a half after they got divorced initially. We moved out to California and
From
Utah. We were in Utah. We were in Orem, I think. We passed by my old house all the time. But yeah, so they moved out here to California. About 6th or 7th grade, I think it was 7th grade, my parents divorced for the second and final time. And I got to experience it all. Got to see the arguments, the legal system, how that works for divorcees and their children. So going into school and seeing that there was a degree or a line of study that takes that specifically was really interesting to me. And so I learned a lot in the classes that I was in, was able to share some insights with classmates as to like the legal system and how that works for divorcees and for children, because I never personally had to stand before a judge and tell them where I wanted to live. But my siblings did. And so kind of seeing the emotional and psychological toll.
Are you the oldest in the family?
I'm the oldest, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was, by the time I had to decide where I was going to live, I was about 14, maybe 15. And my siblings were still much younger, so.
This is in California at this point.
California. Yeah,
so what was it much harder the second time, it sounds like? The first time you just kind of thought, okay, didn't really question, you just thought this is reality. But the second time you saw the whole thing, okay, you kind of watched it unfold, and then unfortunately end poorly. Yeah, so do you feel like you would have gone family studies if it weren't for that? Or is the hope to like fix things that you saw broken? Or
I
is
think
it just a diploma?
Well, for me, like my line of thinking has always been, I want to better understand the world around me, and since my world consists of my family, it's better understanding the psychology behind adversity, overcoming trials, especially within the family system, because that's where you're going to see most things happen and transpire. So another thing too is I feel like the family system, if everything's good at home, it usually translates to a good career, business, because you have a support system that's there for you. Whereas if you don't have a strong family system, that leads to tragedy or lack of success in business, Sure. Now, that's not true of all things. Obviously, there's some...
Trust me, I have kids that challenge that assumption. Or like it's confirmation that I'm not doing a very good job, All right, so this is unfiltered, right? I don't know what camera we're talking into here, but... what makes a dysfunctional family versus a functional one. And a lot of football teams say they're a functional family. They like to use that metaphor. Is BYU a functional or dysfunctional family?
Personally, I would say that BYU is just like every other family that lines up on the block, every other family in the cul-de-sac. They have their own issues. They have fights.
What's a common issue? Like, would you say that maybe an issue that is unique to just BYU, that this is a BYU dysfunction? If there's any, there may not be any.
It's got to be the spiritual side. It's got to be manipulating, weaponizing it. Yeah, okay. Manipulating the spiritual side in order to coerce others to buy in. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does.
And I don't mean to use the word coerce because that's a kind of a hot point for a lot of
strongly influence.
Yeah, strongly influence. Yeah.
I mean, coercion is probably a good word for it at times, depending on how. An example, like, do they say, "Hey, look, you guys are losing. You guys must not be living in a way that is aligned with the belief system." Is that
hit it? You hit it right on the nose. Yeah, you hit it right on the nose. And it had more to do.
For one thing, they're not coming to my class, and so that's one of the. If that's a spiritual component, I have no idea. But just based on that, BYU should be losing more games.
Yeah, it had more to do. So during my time on the football team, it had more to do with the honor code. It was like, we're losing games because kids are not following the honor code. They're not shaving. They're not, living their lives
their
right,
hair.
cutting their hair.
Parker, I'm just. You can edit that out. You can edit that one out.
So that was
You see these guys with long hair or beards, and I'm like,
Long
maybe they
hair.
got some exception or some rule.
no, but that's what it is like when things are good. And nobody cares. Oh man, we're just trying to be more diverse and showing more inclusion for different hairstyles and such. The moment they start losing, okay, we need to hunker down and buy
Get
in.
back to the fundamentals that we think made us successful, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
There's some truth to that, right? The Yankees have a very strict shave policy. They don't I think they just barely started allowing some facial hair.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, there's some truth to some of that rigidity.
Sure.
Okay. What percentage of guys are you okay talking about this?
Of course. Yeah, please.
What percentage of guys you think really are not following the honor code? We know maybe 10%, but maybe 50. What do you feel?
Man, that's tough
because you don't want to. We should probably not.
No, it's okay. I mean, we're not mentioning specific names, but I would say every person to some degree on the team is not strictly adhering to the honor code, whether it's dress and grooming standards, whether it's what do you call it, law of chastity following, or being honest in your
How about the
dealings.
papers? How about a lot of people don't know this about you, but I'll go ahead and say it. You're the only student to this day who has passed my class. You got an A in the class the first time. It was during COVID, so I only knew you through Zoom.
Yeah.
And then I noticed on my roll sheet for, I think it was
2022, yeah.
2022.
Yep.
Your name was on it. I'm thinking,
Oh, 23, sorry, yeah.
you got an A in my class. So you're the only student to this day that's taken my class twice and passed it with flying colors the first time. And then obviously did really well the second time. I know maybe I want to believe I'm a good professor, but I think you needed to have some kind of a full schedule to play football. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So I shared with you before the cameras turned on that I had a class with a professor. I had submitted an assignment, which I think was 15 or 20% of my grade. And he gave me an F, just no credit whatsoever. And so I talked to my academic advisor and I was like, hey, am I going to be able to graduate with this grade? And she's like, no, let's pull you out.
Take
and put you in.
Smailes' class. It's a guaranteed A. Then we can make this thing go away real quick. That's the rumor, right? These guys show up in my class and I can already tell they just go, oh, you'll work with us, I'm like, shoot, this is a bad spiral that we're into now. We're circling the drain here.
Well, how do you react to that? Because I mean, there's no question that the MCOM class is definitely one that benefits students in the way that they communicate in a professional setting.
Right.
I think just in general, I feel like that was my takeaway. But as a professor, when you're being fed these students that seem to be treating it as an easy A, how do you react to that?
It's frustrating because I always joke about teaching college, especially as an adjunct, because you're a paid professional that's usually highly paid in some ways, giving very expensive advice to people, being paid like a volunteer in some ways for people who don't really care about the skill set you're giving them. And so it's a really bad mixture of contradictions happening in the classroom. So from my angle, it's very frustrating because you're giving kind of these diamonds that you have worked so hard to distill down to the most essential pieces. And when you see that they don't care, it's really hard not to follow the same type of well, I don't care then, but it's obvious. Look, I try to empathize and go, look, if I'm going to fail as an athlete, it's not going to be on the field in front of a national televised audience. I'm not going to fail there. I'm going to fail here in the classroom, or at least I would rather slack off here but I doubt they're using that time that they don't come to class to study football. I doubt they're actually using it for that.
I can tell you they're not.
It's hard. At some point, I do wonder if we should be giving athletes the option of going to class versus, hey, you can play here. You don't necessarily have to go to class, but you may not get a degree. But they really aren't there to learn as much as, some students just barely even come. And I think, oh man, I wish they took it. Because I'm trying to teach persuasion. I'm trying to teach real skills that I think benefit people. And so I work hard to prepare. And then when you see that they just meander in or just not come at all.
Yeah. Well, and that's, that's kind of true of the student body as a whole. I do have to give grace to athletes because I feel like a lot of them,
they work hard.
They do.
Really
they do.
Super hard.
And there are some student athletes that I'm like, man, you're going to do some crazy things after football.
Sure.
But one thing I wanted to harp on was I feel like a lot of times athletes can be misrepresented and targeted in a sense to represent an agenda like
Yeah.
that people have against student athletes. And I'm like, man, but that's true of the entire student body, because you have the other students who aren't involved in sports who are also slacking off and thinking, oh, easy A for this class, you know. But
Right.
but to your point, though, I think though that student athletes, you know, being given the resources that they have, they should be just a little bit more
Maybe
urgency.
just show
you know?
up. You know? Like I don't even mind if you like have a hard time understanding the material, but I have seen papers recirculated that I've read before from other athletes, and so there is something that I don't know if they share papers, but I remember grading a paper like I have seen this before. It was probably 3 years prior, and I mean I always confront people, and I used to be able to highlight parts where they stole it from some, but this one was the entire paper, and I just and like. You know, they always have a pretty interesting reason, like, oh, I don't know, I asked for help, but then, I'm like, this is a carbon copy.
So how do you react to instances like that? Because here's the thing: plagiarism is a huge,
It is.
what do you call that, phenomena in
Yep.
high education. So what for you? How do you react to that?
I educate, I coach. I mean, I think BYU would rather have me just automatically report them, but I honestly look at it as a teaching moment. I think it's probably not the first time they did this, and I would rather, especially at a pivotal age, use this as an opportunity to teach them, not through punishment, but through like, hey, let's talk about this. Like, where is this coming from? This is going to show up in other areas. So I'm trying to be more understanding. I always try to be more understanding and coach, and I try to coach the person through it. Again, like if my BYU peers or fellow faculty members for me say that, probably like, no, like that's absolute egregious, and you should, follow some type of protocol. And I just think I'd rather not ruin someone's life in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Just because it can be a life-altering move. I'll probably get a lot of flack for that one, but
is it one of those things where it is a one-strike system? Like you plagiarize a paper,
it feels like it. Yeah, you're like reported. Even if, I usually fail them for that assignment, but I also let them resubmit. And I just think academia does a poor job of teaching people how to make adjustments and changes. In the real world, you get to make a lot of iterations before you turn in your final copy. Academia is you have to get it right the first time, and that's not how typically, especially business, works.
Right.
And so I try to teach them, like, look, made a mistake, let's figure this out, and how they respond to it is more important to me than the actual act. So, and usually people respond really well when you treat them like that. They usually rise to that level of expectation versus, sink.
Yeah.
So.
How many of your colleagues in the education system share your view?
That's a good question. I'm not really, I think at BYU, like I'm an anomaly in the sense that like the athletes take my class more often. And so like a lot of the struggles I have, they've never had at BYU.
Yeah.
I've substituted for a lot of these other professors, and the involvement is high and people are on top of things, but athletes, you kind of have to, bring them along, but they're more socially adept than other students. Like they are very dynamic, charismatic people. So it's a different challenge. My challenges typically don't translate to somebody else.
Yeah.
But I bet there's more, especially with ChatGPT and AI. Like
oh,
there's
absolutely.
Probably more. I'm noticing, in fact, I made this comment today. I was grading all these papers and I'm just noticing the students' writing is getting worse. It's actually, they're getting dumber. They're getting dumber because you can just tell they're not thinking for themselves. The words are all there. They even kind of have a sound of music, right?
Yeah.
There's kind of like a tone or a tune to it, but it's not a cogent argument. And so
Interesting.
It's an interesting world we live in the sense that I want people to be able to think and be persuasive, but if ChatGPT is doing a lot of the thinking for you, they're not recognizing that they have like schizophrenia in their writing. I can't really tell who they're talking to and what they're talking about, and they contradict themselves.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Anyway.
So that's something that you can recognize in your work, is that...
Yes.
Is it easy for a lot of professors to pick up on that, or do you think it's still...
I think so.
Yeah.
When you've read something for so long and you've done a lot of research, you kind of know the cadence, and you can really spot. A lot of students will just keep writing even though they've already said that point. They just keep adding words, and or they'll circle back, and you really have to use a football analogy, advance the ball down the field. In a good persuasive argument, you have to make progress towards the goal line, and the audience wants you to take them there, but a lot of people just run in circles. So
interesting. That's such an interesting...
Not you. Like you had a really good writing style. I remember you excelled in the class. You sat in the back, but you were highly engaged. I
do enjoy sitting in the back. I don't know what it is. I think I I don't know what it is about being able to see the whole picture that I enjoy.
Right.
I'm sitting in the back had nothing to do with me wanting to be detached from the
I didn't
class,
take it that way. I sat in the back too when I was a student. So
Yeah, no, and I enjoyed your class because I feel like, well, one thing that I felt like lacked in a lot of these other classes that I took was concise, efficient communication.
yeah,
And that's what you've built a career on this. So I enjoy classes where they just cut to the chase. Okay, this is the issue here. There's no need to circle back to, you know what I mean? There's no fluff in the content there. I have a really tough time with talking to people and absorbing content that is like that.
yeah.
Because I'm very much someone who wants to just cut to the chase, be concise, say what you mean what you say.
And does that work pretty good in the marriage situation, the family
No,
studies?
not at all. Matter of fact, we've had to have a lot of conversations about
How you
I
communicate?
communicate. Yeah.
Because you're very direct and blunt. And yeah, I always just say the power of the preface. I said, you could say the same direct comment that you would normally say. You know, I don't like this or whatever like it. But if you preface it, it seems to take the edge off of the statement. Like, hey, like I'm going to say this and it may sound a little harsh just by me prefacing, and I can say direct statement, but it's really kind of messy in here. It's a lot easier to take that than just saying it's really messy in here, you know, power of the preface. But do they teach you communication skills in family studies?
They do.
What do they teach you that relates to what I taught?
Yeah. So
assuming you remember what we taught, what we covered.
Well, one of the it's funny. One of the papers that I read that it was an academic study, and it said that emotional-based conversation was better than solution-based conversation in marriage. And for me, that blows my mind because I'm like, I'm a solution-based person. I want application, results, boom. That's
Right.
That's how my brain works most of the time. But alternatively, in in marriage, where it's more so not about the solution, but maintaining the relationship and building a deeper connection with your spouse, it is about the emotional side. And I'm starting to see that now where, like, honestly, my marriage has kind of opened up my eyes to seeing the world differently in terms of, no, rhetoric does matter. You know, the way that we say things does matter if our goal is the convincing of others to our perspective, right?
Yeah.
If you talk like a douchebag, very little people are going to listen.
Yeah.
They're going to hear what you're going to have to say because it's not layered with something that's easier to digest and absorb. So,
and the more influential guys on the team that didn't necessarily have the position, like how did they communicate versus guys that weren't very influential?
Oh man, the most effective leaders that I saw on the team were guys who, one, led by example. You know, they had they were deeply convicted in their own beliefs and values, and two, they never corrected a person in public. It was always it was the relationship that they wanted to build with that other player, not the showcase of I'm the leader, I'm telling this person he needs to be better, and now everyone knows it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And so I've taken that same principle and tried to, hopefully, you know, and I've done it well, but I've tried to apply it to my marriage where if my wife and I have a disagreement and we're in a conversation, I'm not going to correct her in public and humiliate her in front of our friends and family. It's going to be more so a conversation that we have when we're in the car, and I'm saying, babe, I feel like we need to be on the same page with this thing, and I'm never going to correct you in person, but I think you were wrong in this instance. Might be good to apologize, or might be good to shift your thinking in one way. So that's personally how I've handled it and what I've applied. Same thing with the mission. I had, you know, missionaries who are just pharisaical.
Yeah, like my way, the highway, which interestingly, my hardest companions, oh geez, I should be careful, but like
please
were the ones that became the AP. Like those were the hardest. They were assertive, great, which we equate to like some type of aptitude or abilities, but in reality, they were difficult companions to have. They really told me how to do it, what to do, even though they might have been younger than me. And now you served your mission in Micronesia,
Guam.
Guam. Mm-hmm. What language?
So there's a handful of languages out there. They have a few different. So there's Chukis. There's Chuk, the island of Chuk. You have Pohnpei, Kosrae, Yap. You have the Palawan Islands. You have the Mariana Islands, which are like
Just a
Guam,
whole swath of
yeah,
islands out there.
Saipan. So I spoke Pohnpeian.
I was going to say, this is, if I'm reading these
Yeah.
coconuts behind you here, I mean, the actual physical coconut behind you. That's what I figured you served.
Yep.
Okay.
Served on the
These were
island of
gifts that
Pohnpei.
were given to you, it looks like.
Yes, they were. They were gifts given to us by this village in Kitchi. Kitchi was the village I served in initially, and I'd left that area, but had always returned to come visit with people, and there were some baptisms that invited me back to go witness. So, served in Pohnpei. Very interesting mission because it's very isolated.
Yeah.
One, you're in a chain of islands that has a really low population. But on top of that, your mission president is located in Guam. Hundreds of miles south is where the islands are.
Hundreds of miles south.
Hundreds of miles, yeah.
You fly in a little tiny plane, or?
Yeah. Small airport. You have the Federated States of Micronesia. They have their what do you call that? The international airport there.
Yeah.
I guess, sorry, not international, because you have to fly to Guam if you want to
That's
fly to
the
international. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so really small island. I would say it's it kind of allowed me to build, what would you call that, self-reliance, self-realization as like who I wanted to be as a person, because I didn't have someone watching over my shoulder 24/7, you know?
Yeah, what does that mean? Like, what kind of person did you decide you wanted to be? And like, was it a moment? Was it over time, gradual?
I think over time, yeah. I think because before my mission, I was someone that was very much wanting to be involved in every little thing and wanting to get attention from people and like, you know, wow them with my...
You played quarterback in high school? Right?
I did,
Okay,
yeah.
that's typical. Like,
That's
quarterback's
typical, right?
always the most vocal in my class. I've had like 5 or 6 now.
Yeah.
They're always the one that seems to have a little bit more of the attention. Maybe that's just a persona they feel like they have to live up to.
I think so. I think
Did
there's
that come
a
from
common
that?
trend.
You were a
Yeah.
quarterback in high school.
Yeah, I think there's a common trend. But I think what ultimately got me to play quarterback was the idea that I wanted the ball in my hands because I
Yeah.
wanted to affect change, you know?
You want it in your hands. Yeah.
Exactly.
You trusted yourself. Did you get recruited to BYU as a quarterback?
No, I did not.
Did
Unfortunately.
you commit to Utah?
I did. Committed to Utah
And then
first.
you decommitted, or you just okay?
I
What
switched.
changed your mind?
Well, I had an official visit the weekend before signing day, and I took my trip up to Utah, and I didn't feel like it was for me. The biggest difference was that I could tell it was a business first. If you can't contribute to the business, then we don't care about you.
Okay.
You know, which again, that is not a bad setting because it's very much a cutthroat, like probably more of an NFL locker room feeling,
very
you know,
businesslike.
very, and that's kind of
That's-
Coach Witt. You
yeah.
know, Coach Witt's a very
Carried over from Urban Meyer, I imagine. Like he
think
was
so.
kind of a protege. Okay.
I think so, yeah. So I had my visit there. I met with Coach Witt, and I told him, "Hey, Coach, I want to take time to like really consider my decision." And he just told me,
If you have to think about it, it's like a
Yeah,
Shark Tank
just-
thing. Like,
just go-
hey, if you
just go
can't
to
make up your
BYU.
mind now,
Yeah.
you're out. All right.
"Just go to BYU."
Wow. So you just said, okay, like that's my decision, I guess.
Yeah, called Coach Satake that day.
What did they recruit you as at Utah?
So linebacker.
Linebacker.
Yeah,
Did
linebacker.
Did you play that in high school as well?
I did,
So
yeah.
you played both sides. You played linebacker and then went and played quarterback.
I played 3 years of quarterback. My senior year, I mean, junior year, I played a little bit of defense, but my senior year, I really played both sides. Like,
Wow.
was all over the field. I played receiver, safety,
What high school?
linebacker. Tustin High.
Tustin,
And
where's that?
so you've been to Orange County, right?
Yeah.
You know where Santa Ana and Irvine is? Literally just a little sliver of
Right there.
town right there. Yeah.
Okay. I grew up in Chico, California, but that's really far north.
Further north.
Yeah. Aaron Rodgers was our quarterback growing, like when in high school. Like a lot of people know my high school for that reason, but we did not see the Aaron Rodgers that we see today. But
Oh, that's so good.
yeah. I mean, he got recruited to play at Butte. I mean, that was the only school I think that wanted him at the time.
Yeah.
So you played quarterback, you were linebacker, and then BYU said, we'll take you also for linebacker because you didn't end up playing linebacker.
Yeah. So I got recruited as linebacker. I got to BYU. They changed me over to D-line.
Tight end, wasn't there? I thought.
Played tight end my freshman year. And I went on my mission, came back, played tight end, and then switched back over to defense. What was interesting because the coaches take credit for switching me over to defense, but that was a decision that I made.
They take credit. Like we saw something that
We're the masterminds behind this change.
Well,
and I know. I literally walked up to Coach Kalani and Coach Tuyaki and I said, "Hey, I want to play defense."
They said you did exactly what we expected. We just guided you right there.
It's all part of our
You may think it
plan.
was your idea, but we planted that a long time ago.
Yeah.
So you played defensive end and then tackle as well.
Defensive tackle, defensive end.
Okay. And what stopped you from, like, was the dream to play in the NFL when you got home from your mission, or was the
Oh,
kind of guy you wanted to be in your mission? Did you think, I'm going NFL?
absolutely.
What changed then?
Well, I mean,
Besides
first of
getting
all,
married, that's always a challenging thing. Yeah.
everybody has the dream of going to the NFL. I think that would be.
This is so true. Like, I've asked my students, by the way, I've probably have taught 100 football players, and I have asked them the probability of them going to NFL. I'm shocked. And part of me used to think, whoa, this is staggering. But at the same time, I actually think it's good because you want your college players to believe this, right?
Yeah. I would dare say you have to have a little bit of delusion as a professional athlete to believe that you are the best, even if you're not. It's just the ego. And again, we're talking about things that you and I know, okay, you shouldn't be prideful, you shouldn't be egotistical, but at the same time, in the competitive field, and especially in a field that's as competitive as college sports and professional sports, you have to have that.
To put that kind of work in that you need to put in to go in and day out, you have to have some belief. And like even strong belief that I could get there. So you thought that? What changed your mind when you finally were like, I'm going to hang the cleats up?
So the end of my college career had more to do with my physical well-being and financial well-being because I got taken off a scholarship my last semester.
Oh.
Or sorry, not last semester, my last year.
How did they break that to you?
Oh, man.
And did you see it coming?
Yes and no. I saw it coming in a sense that I was like, okay, there's clearly a change that's going to happen. Either they're going to tell me that they're going to cut me or they're going to have me switch positions or something. So my coach basically said, hey,
who was the coach at the time?
Coach Tuyaki. Yeah.
Okay.
Coach Tuyaki was the one that delivered it. And he said, hey, so, we're reaching the end of your 4 years scholarship. We're going to transition you over to the Built Bar scholarship. And I was like, oh,
like as a walk-on?
As a walk-on. Okay. Yeah. As a walk-on basically. And so I asked him like, that doesn't come with a stipend, right? To cover the living expenses. No, it doesn't. But we're going to work with them really quick, to kind of figure that out so that you do have something. Eventually, we'll get there.
You're a direct guy. You like direct communication.
Yeah.
How did you handle this? You walked away thinking, just hit me between the eyes here, or what? Or did you want to believe it?
I just took it.
You took it.
I just took it.
So a lot of people don't know this, but behind the scenes, like a lot of the football players will stay after class and they'll talk to me about different challenges they face. And the most common challenge that I see these football players is not getting direct communication or feedback about where they're standing. Yeah, like that's the hardest thing for them. Like they have to read between the lines a lot.
Yeah.
And I try to also understand from the coach's perspective. You don't want to like draw a really clear line saying this is where you are because it can change.
Right.
But that is the most common complaint I hear from athletes is where do I stand? And they feel like they don't get feedback.
Yeah.
And would you agree with that?
I would 110% agree. And I think it has to do with, and this may be more like a conspiracy but I think it's coaches, they look at the long game, right? If this person transfers and they bring success to that other school that's within our conference, that's going to look bad on us. So why don't we just keep him around, not play him, or just never tell him the truth.
That resource from going somewhere else. I remember one of my students went to Oklahoma State.
Mm-hmm.
He, I'm trying to remember his name. He did really well there.
Really?
Yeah. He gifted me, and I have it on my desk, a football for helping him transfer. Or not transfer, helping him do well in the class.
How long ago was this student?
It would have been 4 years ago. It was he showed up at my house to give me a signed football. I'm going to look it up because I'm not going to be able to pronounce his name right. But he's always stuck out in me like he was one of the coolest guys. Defensive line. You probably
defensive line. I might know him then if it was from
Oklahoma
4 years
State.
ago.
Yeah.
2021. I'm sure.
We'll get the name. We'll get the name. But it's on my shelf still because it meant so much to me that he came to my house with his fiance and gifted me this football. I didn't know at the time he was going to transfer, but I think Oklahoma State benefited from him being on the team.
I would believe it. Every single person that's transferred from BYU has in some way found a role or some level of success.
I mean,
Daily.
He went to his brother was in my class, Michael Daly went to Rice, I believe, right?
Yeah, Michael Daly went to Rice.
And his brother went to University of Utah, which is now one of the sack leaders in the nation. Yeah. Anyway, there's a lot of behind the scenes that people don't know, and one of the most common complaints is just direct communication. But if you were to argue on behalf of the coaching staff, why don't they give it? What's the good reason for not being so clear?
I think if I'm arguing on behalf of
On
them, right?
behalf,
If I'm playing the apologist role, I think they're hoping that they unlock something. I think that a lot of
Something
coaches
happens here,
that
like
something happens, yeah. So
something latent.
that either they show some level of
Have you ever seen this happen, by the way? Have you ever seen a player just somehow
break
they
the
hang
depth
on?
chart.
Yeah, they hung on and then boom. Or is this
Oh man, that is a tough. I mean, I've seen younger guys, and I think the younger guys have a much better argument for playing time because you're investing time and you know they'll be there for the next 2-3 years.
right?
But I've seen a lot of older guys who were foundational to the success that Kalani had that got demoted for little to no reason. So
How often? Sometimes companies do this,
Yeah.
and when I work with companies, like they keep people around sometimes because of morale boost. Like I call them. This is a bad term, but I call them mascots because they elevate the spirit
Yeah.
of the organization. They're not top performers. They're not even that great of performers, but they elevate people's mentality or attitude. Do they keep people like that on the team, or do you have to be very skilled as well? Because there's some locker room guys that just elevate the mentality. Like I'm trying to think of one in particular, but
yeah, no, I don't doubt that for a minute. There was a lot of players that performance wise, they wouldn't have played anywhere else,
Right.
you know, if they transferred, but kept them around for their leadership and for the culture. What do you call it? They were in strict adherence with the culture that Kalani was trying to build.
yeah.
So
And sometimes culture fits, right? We call them culture. Like they are a great emblematic version of what we want to instill here, and so we're going to keep them around.
exactly. No,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. I saw a lot of those guys and they play a role. And that's the thing too, is like now that I'm 2-3 years removed from football, I can see in the professional setting the role that those guys have in a company that's either a startup or even a well-established, organization. And so I get it. I can now kind of see, all right, you keep those guys around for, what do you call that?
Any guy like that you can think of on the team that just not the most skilled player, we all know it, but at the same time, like he kind of creates some camaraderie and cohesion among the team.
Oh, that's tough. That's a tough one to say because I don't want to say
Right,
that
you
they
don't
didn't
wanna-
contribute.
Right, because I should have said, hey, let's just not worry about the contribution part. Just tell me a good morale, culture fit guy.
Yeah, no, a lot of those guys, and those are guys that are important during tough losses, tough seasons. Those are guys that are important for recruiting new players to the program. You need those guys because they kind of lay the bricks for the future, So,
And they're just good to have on the team sometimes. They seem to have some type of, they call them peer effects, but usually that's related to the skill. But at the same time, attitude can do it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, you see the opposite happen too, right? People
Yes.
get rid of bad culture fits, even though the talent's there. They just said, yeah, you're a bad culture fit. You're out.
Yeah, a lot of that too.
Even at the pro level, you see it.
Yeah.
They just don't want to deal with the drama.
Yeah, and it's, when in the locker room when we had said that like toxicity is contagious, they were really correct about that because you bring someone who has a negative attitude, who is selfish or wants to make changes that benefit only themselves, that can be very contagious in a locker room setting. And so we had, I wouldn't say we had a lot of those, but you could start to see some of the seeds being planted with some younger players. Luckily, with the coaching staff that BYU has now, they've rooted those guys out really quick, and they have that authority to do so. But they fully embrace that authority that they have, which can be seen good or bad from the fan base or the player standpoint.
Yeah, how like one thing that's hard to balance, especially I think at BYU more than other places, but I could be wrong, which is conformity. Like complaining is one thing, but how much do they want conformity? Like they don't want to be questioned or challenged. And this could be just a whole school-wide phenomenon. Like,
shoot, religion, right? What?
Man, don't question us. That's questioning the man upstairs. Like, don't question. But I think the only way you can get to truth, the only way you can actually improve something and make it stronger is to sometimes break it down and then rebuild it and strengthen it. But that's not something in the culture that is widely celebrated.
Yeah, there's a new movement of, I think they call it like postmodernism, deconstructionism, right?
Yeah.
Where you reduce things to the parts that they play instead of looking at it as a whole. And I would definitely agree that there is some value in it, but the biggest flaw is that you take away from the overall good that is brought about from it. And so for me, I like to think that I'm well aware enough to be able to point out which cases those are. But I don't know if you've noticed, like with the students that have come into your class now that are very much more deconstructionist in the way that they look at things. Have you
Questioning
noticed?
things a little bit more?
Yeah.
More so, I could say in the last couple of years, there's a little bit more of an anti-conformist movement where they're almost over-indexed a little bit to like questioning things to the point where they probably are questioning things that aren't related to the issue, but they think it is, you know? Would you say that's true?
I would think so. I mean, in my interactions with the student body, like on my last last 2 semesters of school, I started to notice them a lot more because they present themselves differently, right? They don't adhere to gender normative clothing, or there's a lot of different things that they do. And for me, I love diversity. I love being able to see different ways of expressing yourself. But then I had also seen on the opposite side where I share different views from you. So now you're going to deconstruct my views and see how it's attached to these other, ideas that I don't necessarily conform to, so.
Yeah, and I'm totally welcome to that. I think it's actually healthy as long as it doesn't, usually if it comes with judgment, that's the thing that puts like some type of chasm between me and the other person. Yeah. The more I recognize that judgment is one of the most unlikable traits in people. I'm not talking about the judgment that says that alleyway looks bad and the people that's standing there don't look safe. I'm talking about the kind that says I'm better than you kind of judgment. That's the kind that gets people into a situation where I don't really care too much about what you say if it's coming from that place.
Well, so you've had a lot of conversations with students. I mean, I don't think there was a single class that I went to that I didn't have someone talking to you, conversing with you, kind of picking your brain. What is the, how do I ask this question? What is the general attitude or demographic of the student body now compared to maybe past years as a professor?
Great question. The overall like differences between I see more similarities than different. I can start to pick up that every class has this type of personality. As a whole and as an aggregate, I would say with AI especially, I see a little bit of a shift to everybody's wanting to talk how to use it, but not necessarily. I don't see as much critical thinking, and that could be just me like looking for that. Because I know, like, in my own life, like, when I outsource some of my thinking to ChatGPT or to Gemini or whatever, I notice that I'm not thinking for myself as much. But that's a tough question. I would say, like, I see more similarities and differences. I don't see anything that's really changed. I would just say the AI thing has changed how people produce work, which isn't their own. And I really just, I will say this, actually, this is something that I think you'll find super interesting. Okay. I don't think people know how to make a really strong argument. Like that's a foreign concept. Like when I have them write a research paper that I say, let's get this published, it's going to be, take a stance on something. It's very hard for them to articulate and take a stance because so much of their life, in my opinion, has been playing it in this middle ground and they write in this generalities and it's more informative. And when you push them to take a stance, it like makes them uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And I would say that's become a little bit more prevalent. I have a really hard time getting people to take a strong stance and then create a cogent argument.
Do you feel like that's representative of the environment? I mean, political, maybe even just social, like is that representative of the environment that we're growing up in now?
Yeah, I do. I think people don't want to be posterized in some ways, like, whether it's in athletics or in social situations, they don't want to be somebody that puts themselves in a situation where they can get dunked on. So they don't put themselves in a situation for that. I think it's unsafe, but that's where the best stuff is. You got to put yourself in a situation like that. But you never struck me as somebody that didn't really want to take a stance. You actually leaned into certain things. Do you remember any of the papers you wrote, just by curiosity?
Oh man,
I should have looked them up and said, okay, you wrote about this. Do you remember that?
You know what's funny? I had thought of a paper that I had written, but it was actually from the
you wrote about
COVID.
Culture once.
Yeah, it was culture during the COVID era. And I remember bits from that paper because I was looking for it. I was like, I couldn't find anything in my 2023 folders. I was like, man, this is really from COVID. But I do remember some of the topics. One thing that I enjoyed about your class was it was helping build stronger arguments and influencing others, right? Influencing others by using persuasive language.
Yep.
And for me, that one of the things that struck me and that I still use now is seeking for understanding first so that I properly represent your argument, right?
Yeah.
One thing I hate most is the straw man fallacy, where you misrepresent the other person's argument and then you build an argument around that, but it doesn't directly address like the core of the issue.
Yeah.
A lot of people do this with members of the church where they misrepresent our beliefs and then they say, well, in the Bible it says this, this, and this.
They're setting it up.
They're setting it up, exactly. Yeah. It's to mimic a posterization, right? And that's something that I really hate.
What about Charlie Kirk's a very relevant topic. Obviously, we're in Utah, but I've watched a lot of his videos lately. I didn't really know that much about him, but he definitely invites people to his arena, and then he, like an arm wrestling, he just sits there and just slams them down. Do you agree with the approach to? Is he really having the influence? Probably not on the people he's talking to directly, but maybe the audience that's watching.
I think when it comes to characters like Charlie Kirk,
he's setting it up, right? He's definitely has a methodology, and he's very effective.
Absolutely. There's an agenda behind it. And I think that anyone who has honest eyes is able to kind of pick apart that agenda. Because whether you're on the left side of the political aisle or the right side, characters like that can be popular, but also divisive,
Yeah.
And I think specifically...
Trying to prove a point too, right?
Exactly. Exactly, because I don't agree with most of his. I don't say I don't agree with most of his takes. I don't agree with most of the ways that he represents the other side, right? Like liberalism and the left side of the political
making
aisle.
It more extreme,
making it more extreme, exactly. Because for me, I've always felt like you need both sides, because all leftism or liberalism is pushing the needle forward in terms of progress, and then conservatism is holding on to the things that make us. The foundational, what do they call them, constitutional. Values that were kind of embedded into our nation, So I see the value on both sides, because there are a lot of things that need to change. There are things that need to progress and get better, but we shouldn't pursue that and also lose our identity as a nation, So sorry to take that turn into politicism,
We can keep going if you want. This is the Unfiltered Talk. So I think, you brought up religion, you brought up arguing, and you brought up, being able to see something from other people's side, which I do think, even if you look at some of the more persuasive techniques in sales, FBI negotiation, everybody loves to be understood. And then it's that at that moment where you can pivot and you've earned the right to let them engage with you so they can understand your perspective. That's really how influencing people is done for the most part. And not typically making somebody, feel a certain way, even though that was highly, I watched his material. It's very persuasive. At least it's very interesting and eye-catching. But at the same time, if you really want to influence people, you got to understand their perspective. I think I shared this quote. Your paper, by the way, is going to come back to me. I know you wrote it on culture, and you took a stance that I had never seen before. It was on fathers. I'm going to get it. I'm going to actually, because I'm going to remember your paper. Because I remember you brought it to me, and I was like, Alema, I've never seen anybody write a topic on this angle before, which I always love, right? People taking a stance. So you weren't afraid to go there.
Yeah.
But I would say there's a quote from 1984, George Orwell's famous book. Have you read it? You should if you haven't.
I believe it. I read it in high school.
It's fantastic, right? It's it's a Hallmark book.
Right.
And he says, perhaps it's better. What does he say? Perhaps one would rather be understood than be loved. Yeah, perhaps one would rather be understood than loved. And I thought about that quote for years now. And the more I think about it, the more I agree with it.
Wow.
Because you can love people as a parent, but you can also not understand them. Because I'm going to tell my child what's best for them instead of tell me why you did that stupid thing. Why did you do, what was behind that? What are you trying to hope? What are you hoping to accomplish? And I think that statement is more true than I've ever felt it. And, it's kind of of course, synonymous, being understood is synonymous with being loved.
With being loved, yeah.
But if it had to come down to it, I think about that quote often.
Yeah, if you come across a stranger, I think the only thing that the only thing that I wish I could ask for is for them to understand and represent my view properly.
Right.
Rather than misrepresent it and then portray it as the straw man,
right,
fallacious thinking that is going on nowadays. So I think I agree with that, saying 110%, because you can love someone to the extent that you don't necessarily understand.
Yeah, and there's a
you know
wall.
What I mean? Right? Yeah, there's a wall. It's a bit of an abyss that's stands between you and that person.
Understanding that there's a bond. They'll feel love more than they'll feel the love from somebody who doesn't understand them, which I think is a really compelling aspect to just, I mean, when I sold door to door, the number of things, the things that people would share with me about their personal lives, that I was shocked. That I realized, like, you never knew me before I knocked on your door. You'd probably never looked forward to this moment, but they would reveal things to me just wanting, because they felt like I could listen. And that was my strong point. I mean, I took a little longer with my sales, but at the same time, people trusted me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
really important.
I did want to touch on that a minute. So, because I've had instances in sales where it almost seems like people are eager to overshare,
Yeah.
their life story. And I think that in a professional setting, or if you're having a conversation with someone and you want to share things, there also has to be an environment where it's going to be received well.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to sit here and expose to you all of my trauma that I went through and then expect a thorough response and validation for those things, because ultimately I think I also carry a little bit of responsibility in making sure that it's the correct environment and timing. Do you feel like that's something that we're not seeing as much, where people are just kind of quick to share their emotional response rather than kind of thinking through?
Yeah, I think the opposite. I think more people there's a shell that they're unwilling to like reveal. I think in some ways people want this, they want to be portrayed as a person that has it together. Or you do sometimes see people that just divulge too much right away. And that makes us question, oh, like, what's the intent here? Or we like to have this steady progression in a relationship, kind of like a citadel that has like a maze that goes through it. We kind of like to work our way towards the center. And so I either see one or the other, but yeah, like relationships take time. They really do. And divulging things, disclosing things is a way to bond. But if it's done too quickly, it's like you're overly familiar. We don't know me well enough to share that level of detail. Let's not pretend that we're that close yet.
Yeah.
You're kind of trying to cook the turkey in the microwave, It takes time.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think it's a kind of a microcosm of the level of emotional domination that there is now. Or I guess emotions dominate our way of thinking so much to where we are quick to jump to the emotional side of the argument. And again, my family studies class says that emotional focused communication is important, but I think it's only with those that you're familiar with and are ready to accept or absorb.
You've earned this a little bit.
Yes, that's the perfect word.
And so speaking of marriage studies, like we do share a marriage study, at least I do, with leaders when I talk to them about interacting with people. There's a study that claims it can predict divorce at a pretty high rate. You may know, University of Washington professor, 7-to-1 is the ratio of positive to negative interactions.
I remember this from our class. Okay, yeah, okay.
So he claims if it's lower than that, like let's say 5-to-1 or 3-to-1, like meaning you have 3 positive interactions and 1 negative one, they can predict divorce pretty well. I don't know how, but they claim that it translates to leaders. Like if you're on my team and you're one of the people who work with me, and if you and I have a relationship where I give you negative feedback and then I give you positive, and it's just 1-to-1, like the chances of you staying on the team are pretty low.
Wow.
I mean, 7-to-1 seems like, I don't think I'm even close to that ratio. Would you say, what would you say your ratio?
Oh my gosh, I don't even.
Moment of truth.
mean, well, our son was born this year, born in January, and I think those initial months it had to have been a little bit lower than that.
Right.
That's just the nature of raising your first child and having those first moments, those first experiences. But I think now, because I have noticed
positive to 1 negative, or like potentially negative. That's a lot.
Yeah, I think I have noticed a bit of a shift now as our son is becoming more self-aware, and as he develops. I think that ratio has probably gotten more positive.
Yeah.
I would be interested to see if I could count that
if we
throughout the day.
And said, okay, like, is this positive? Is this neutral? What is this? Yeah. So what I do tell parents, something I didn't expect, something that I think everybody should know, is like, you're biologically designed to protect that child, right? What's his name?
Xavier.
Cool name. You're biologically, which means you'll do anything it takes to ensure his safety. That means even protecting him from your spouse. That means making sure whatever she's doing or you're doing to him, like, you're going to protect that boy from each other or from your spouse. And a lot of people don't realize that if you have different views on, let's say, vaccines, or you have different views on, I don't even care if it's tennis shoes. Like, you're going to have an opinion on whether or not you should take Tylenol or let them suffer through it. But a lot of people think children are a glue, but in reality, like, it could be a wedge, because above all else, you're going to protect that child. But you have to be aware of that going in.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me that you had that ratio was a lot different when he was young. Then let's add in 3 more kids to it, right? Like, let's see how.
and ours was, and admittedly, like, ours was probably more positive than some other parents, just because of the nature of his birth. Like, he was a miracle by every measure, where he had a birth defect on his stomach.
My goodness.
It was basically like where his organs were developed outside of his normal.
I've heard this before.
Yeah, it's called an omphaloceal. It's basically like a herniated growth.
Oh my gosh.
But so he 2 days old, he underwent surgery, and they were able to close the gap and put his organs back into his abdominal cavity. And so, admittedly, I would say that there was a level of gratitude that we had just all throughout that process of, man, like, I don't care.
Right.
I don't care. He's here now. And
right.
But then, as the months went by and he started developing normally, started showing normal behaviors from an infant, that started to get a little bit tougher, because we're like, okay, now we're in it. We're changing diapers at 3 a.m. He's crying, waking up. We're not getting as much sleep. I still have to go to work. She has to stay home. So
right. And you start keeping score somewhere. I do tell people in a marriage, like, don't have a scoreboard, because you'll be tallying. Okay, that's 5 outings you've had with your friends. I've had 0. So I'm going to cash this one. Like, if you start keeping score, that's a recipe for disaster or future conflict.
Yeah, I agree, because every day is a new day with your spouse, right? And I've tried, early in my marriage, I tried to keep score, and see, like, I did this, and it doesn't lead to, again, emotional based over solution based, right? Because I think keeping score is more of a okay, well, I have the right to do this now. And that never ends up right.
Because we operate like that as children. I think we understand the reciprocity. Like, I did this, you owe me something.
Yeah.
And then as you grow older, you start, especially the win-lose mentality as an athlete. As a kid, you think there has to be, for me to win, someone needs to lose. But in a business, you actually have to get rid of that mentality in a work setting and think, for me to win, I have to help other people win. I have to elevate other people to win. And that's winning now. And that's a hard mentality shift. That even in a marriage, like, okay, like, for us to succeed, what does that look like? But we often want reciprocity. We want, hey, I did this, therefore I deserve something back. And if you think you deserve something, then that doesn't usually end up going well in the long run. But
yeah, and just like you said,
now, though, like Xavier's doing good?
Doing way good. He's a normal development now,
hitting all the milestones.
All the milestones. Okay. He has a little bit of a vertical scar on his belly, but other than that, you wouldn't even know that he went under the knife. So.
Scary though.
Very scary. Yeah. So the day that he went into the surgery room, me, my parents, and her parents were sitting in the waiting room, and we were just like bawling our eyes out because of how we had waited for this moment for 4.5 years of trying to have a baby. And for that to finally happen.
4.5 years, that means you wanted a baby right from the start.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Well, actually, I should preface this.
You got married in 2020, right?
We got married in 2020. And
before COVID or probably after, since it hit in March? Or
when did we? Let me think.
Well, because that would be quite the honeymoon, right? Hey, we get married and then we just live together and we don't even leave the house.
It was right after COVID.
After.
It was right after COVID. So March was when they rolled out all of the different procedures and such for COVID. We got married on May 8th of 2020.
Okay.
So, we were married then, got sealed the year afterwards. But it was probably later that year that we found out that we were pregnant, and then she miscarried. And so we had kind of been battling that back and forth.
Then to have this news happen, and we had a premature baby. We miscarried as well. I should probably... Yeah, and then he came 7 weeks early, our firstborn. And my gosh, it doesn't follow the traditional path like you think.
Yeah.
You kind of think, okay, this is how it's going to go. And then when he came early, you're like, oh my gosh. Because they warn you about a lot of things. Hey, the death is a possibility, all these different, and you just sit there and go, okay, here we go.
So is it okay if I ask you some questions about that? In terms of the coping response that you guys had, obviously the initial response is not always the best one, but how did you guys eventually reach that place where it is comfortable to talk about now? And,
Yeah.
it's something that you look back on maybe as something that maybe strengthened your relationship with your spouse. Could I say that?
Yeah, I mean, we were the type that put our heads down and kind of got through it and came up for air every once in a while. But you look at the before and afters of me, I look like super young, even though I was 30. I probably looked like I was 19. And then like within a year, I looked like I was actually 30 years old. And then I just, aged like, it was almost like a presidential office before and afterwards. Just it looked terrible. Yeah, but that did help us together. But at the same time, I'd say we're more stressed. That wasn't something that was glue. That was hard because we had different views. Like he was allergic to everything, and even still, he's 16 now, and he's still. I mean, I tell him this joke because he just didn't sleep for a long time, and now he's 16. I tell him like, look, man, when you came in this world, I lost sleep because you were just up all the time, and I'm still losing sleep over these decisions you're making. You're still keeping me awake at night. So, yeah. How'd you guys? I mean, obviously, this was something that you feel is strengthened, which it can do, and I wish I could say the same in some ways. Of course, you have this person.
Yeah.
There's a quote that says, when you have a kid, they say, welcome to the human race. Like you've essentially now have joined what does that mean to you? If I understand conceptually what it means, but do you feel this is true? Like you've technically joined the human race now.
Yeah, because I mean, most of like the human experience is around responsibility and taking care of things around you.
Yes.
And when you're taking care of something that is like, it essentially is you, is a part of you, it carries a lot more gravitas and, presence, So for me, a lot of like the conversations that I had with like my in-laws and with my parents was like, okay, what did you guys do? Yeah. How hard was that? Do you think I can do that?
Yeah. And they just say, it doesn't matter what you think, you just do it.
You just do it. Exactly. That was a lot of the conversation I had with my dad. I was like, look, you're never going to be perfect at it. You just do it.
Yeah.
And you just trust that you're doing it to the best of your ability. Some days you're going to be at 50% and that's good enough,
Yeah. Just getting to just surviving.
Just surviving. Yeah. Getting through to the next day. And again, we were fortunate to have such great medical professionals up at the NICU and the U of U hospital.
Yeah.
And
children's
we completely trusted
How
their
long
expertise.
Were you in the NICU for?
It's about 2.5 weeks, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
It's hard to be in there. We were in the NICU for a while. That's not easy.
Yeah, and the reason why for me, a realization came when Xavier had finished surgery, that families were not getting the same news that we were, right? There were complications, babies were passing away.
Yeah.
And so for me,
you're around it. You kind of know, like neighbors almost, like what's happening.
And we heard it. I mean, just down the hall from us, there was a really, really nice family who had twins. And both of them were NICU babies. One of them had passed maybe 2 days after being born. And the other one was fighting for his life. And
you're trying to stay focused on what you can control, and being a solutions guy, that probably is really challenging to not have control.
Well, that, and then also just being surrounded by that, the idea that so today could be great, tomorrow could be worse,
right.
And the day could be better, and then the day after that is complete tragedy. So the what do you call that? The unpredictability of it all, that welcomed me to the human race.
Then you realize, all right, you don't even know what that taps into. But I remember the nurses don't go in to console a baby, they just stick to their schedule in the NICU. So if a baby's crying, and we would hear certain babies cry for hours because the parents just never came in.
Yeah.
And the nurses just can't go in there and console like you think. They have to stay to their schedule because they can't get emotionally attached. So they just let the baby cry it out. And you're just like, oh.
I think that procedure,
gosh.
I think that policy has changed a little bit. And I think it's because of the new wave of nurses that have come in. There is a long line of nurses now that are waiting to go to the NICU
to like consult, like
yeah.
wow.
So now
That's
there's multiple nurses being assigned to one room.
Yeah, I was in St. George, so a lot of polygamists would come in to that hospital.
Yeah,
and there was a lot of babies that were born in the polygamous communities, and so we saw some of those families come in, some didn't.
Yeah, we were really grateful because we know our experience was probably unique, and not everyone had the same exact experience with us in the NICU. I mean, there's be times where I was sleeping in the room and you heard an alarm go off down the hall.
Yeah.
And every time I heard, like, it was like,
you knew that meant something, right? Or
you knew it meant something.
Yeah.
You knew that it meant that nurses were going to attend to the room because something had happened. Their breathing was too low. Right. Their oxygen saturation was too low or something like that. And so being surrounded by that, again, was a welcome.
Yeah,
you're in
the
it
human
now.
race. So a positive that came out of it, like I looked at this baby in the NICU, in the incubator, my son, and I think I had a realization moment that the way I had been living up to that point wasn't going to provide the kind of life. Now this person depended on me, right? You'd think marriage would do that, like, okay, like this person depends. But for some reason, that was my wake-up call to watch that. And so like I studied relentlessly. I'd realized the career path I was on probably wasn't going to financially provide. I think we even qualified for WIC, even though I had a master's degree, which means, women, infant, children. Yeah. It means that you can qualify for like government aid with like certain products, like dairy products. Anyway, I studied to get into Harvard, and it was a cool moment. I don't think I ever would have gone to that kind of a school if I didn't have that moment where I'm like, okay, I have to take some type of ownership of my life and the path I'm going on, kind of like this lazy river path, sitting there in the inner tube, enjoying my pina colada, just isn't going to work anymore. Like I have to figure out this. And so the path to get to Harvard was a very different one, but maybe you feel that you're in that stage where I was, which I don't know what you have next, but in some ways allow it to unlock for you possibilities that you never thought were possible. Because I never thought that was a possibility. But I don't know, has it done anything like that for you where you're like, okay, now I'm going to take all these skills and athlete abilities and motivation that and I'm going to apply it to something else. I don't know if you've come to that moment.
I think so. So at my previous job, I was making $55,000 a year, I think. Okay. And that's just to give you a kind of basis.
I was making at that time 36.
Holy cow.
36.
It's crazy. Well, yeah, it
was bad.
Crazy times, yeah. But so, I think at my previous job, I had realized that I was going nowhere fast, and we had found out that we were pregnant with that job. Like we were at that job when we had found out that my wife was pregnant. And so that put a little bit of pep in my step. That's ultimately what led to the creation of the media company, because I felt like I need a second source of income to be able to provide.
Yeah.
So that kind of, it welcomed the idea of, okay, I have a creative mind, let's put it to use and let's try to monetize it to some degree.
You're a high potential. Even as a student, I remembered you and you stood out. So when I saw your name back on the roll sheet, I thought, Lemma, what's he, this is interesting. I think this was a mistake. So like just knowing that you have that ability and believe like you have unique qualities.
I appreciate it. And again, that's credit to the MCOM class. And I think that the way that honestly, because most of my experience at BYU was being in classes that said, do it this way.
Yeah.
And you either do it this way or you don't get the grade, right? There was very little room for creativity or diving into ideas that pushed against the grain, right?
Yeah.
With your class, I felt complete freedom to do that, right? To put my mind onto the paper and then just see. And then you gave really good feedback as to how I could better communicate that. Because ultimately, I think my problem wasn't the creativity side; it was the expressing it. And so you showed.
It's a lot of people, yeah.
You gave us the tools to better articulate what our minds were putting onto the paper,
Yeah.
So again, I appreciate your class. This is why you're here today, because I felt like we would have a good conversation about these things in particular. I did want to ask you a question in regards to advice that you would give to your students, or maybe just to younger couples who are kind of looking for a career path, whether it's in business or sales. What should someone be looking for that personally fits themselves?
That's a great question. So like I'll tell this story, and maybe you remember me saying it. And it goes back to that story I just told you about my son being born. I remember I was the typical path that I thought everybody takes if they want to do well financially was an MBA. At least that was the most viable option. Of course, I looked at dentistry because I'm in Utah, and like dentists, like people, I think Utah produces the most dentists out of anybody. So I like thought that would be a good path. I couldn't be a doctor. I really didn't want to do that whole thing. So I thought MBA, shortest distance between here and there, because that's what people do. And so I just kept getting rejected by MBA programs. Even my parents' alma mater, Texas A&M, invited me out. I did my interview there for their MBA, and then they rejected me. And I thought, oh my gosh, my grandpa taught here, my parents met here.
Yeah.
This is bad. And I was sitting there in Cedar City on a golf course. I remember I had the course to myself. It was the middle of the day, and I thought, I'm just going to take a moment to reflect on my life a little bit. And I was on this, probably I think it was like the 7th hole on the green, sitting on it was like a little hillside above the green. And I'm sitting there, I remember the sun, it was probably about 2:00 if I remember right. And I remember the story, Acres of Diamonds, came in my head. Do you remember me sharing this? I don't know if I shared it with your class. I try to share it as often as I can.
You'll have to remind me.
So Acres of Diamonds, and it's a story that flashed in my head. Like, it's a story about a man that heard about diamonds. And so he spent his entire life and money looking for these diamonds that people talked about. He dies, he gets buried in his backyard, and they find that he's been living on this acre of diamonds his whole life, right? When they bury him, they see all these diamonds. And so the whole moral of the story, and maybe you already know it, is right in front of you or right in your backyard are these diamonds. And I thought, okay, like this story flashed in my head. What are my acres of diamonds? What are things that I'm just overlooking? Because I keep getting rejected.
Right. Yeah.
I keep getting rejected by these MBA programs. I keep looking for diamonds, but maybe they're right here. In my mind, I decided to take moments to trace back to my childhood, what things I've been doing my whole life that I've been good at. And I remember back in high school, walking across the street in Chico, California, and TAing. I was a TA in the classroom. I wanted to watch how teachers taught. And I was fascinated by being a good teacher because, I mean, honestly, like there's not many of them, right? Like teachers that really inspire and engage.
Yeah,
and so I was fascinated. And so I watched, and I did that out of my own volition. I did it out of my own free will. I wanted to see. And if I traced it all the way up until that moment, I was about, 27, 28. I've been involved in education my whole life. I worked at the college there. I taught at that college at SUU. Before that, I worked in California at a bilingual school. So like, looking back, it's obvious, right? Like, okay. And so I thought, I'm really good at education. I'm going to apply to the best school, Harvard, and get a degree in education and not worry about an MBA, which made me feel like, okay, well, maybe that will translate somewhere.
Yeah.
Because I knew I had been good at that my whole life. And I just applied to that one school when I got in after getting rejected by all these MBA programs. So the point of the story is this. When you choose a career path, it's kind of like a marriage. It has to choose you back in some ways, right?
Sure.
You may want it and be forcing it, but it may not actually want you back because you may not have a skill set. And I'm not saying just because you got rejected, you don't have one, but go after skill. Like, what would you be really good at? And not what you think you're going to be good at. And I've read enough college admissions essays to know people all want to be the things that they saw on TV.
Yeah.
They want to be these glorified versions of something, but in reality, they're well suited to do something very different. I tell people this joke. I say, Rudy's a great movie story, but it's a terrible application of something, right? He should have never spent that amount of time trying to get on the Notre Dame football team, right? That's a bad story from a career perspective. Like, you should not do that.
Yeah.
Even though he got on the field for a few seconds, unless we heard about the movie, it's a complete, like, he probably learned a lot of things. I'm not gonna try to diminish what happened there. From a career perspective, don't do that, right? Go after what you'd be good at. And that's my advice to people, because I think what you eventually become great at, you'll be passionate about. Nobody wants somebody who's really a passionate pilot to fly their airplane. Like, they want the most skilled. They don't want a passionate doctor. Of course, you hope that the doctor loves what they do. I want the most skilled. I don't want the most passionate hairdresser or barber. I want the most skilled. I don't walk into a place like, tell me who your most passionate hairdresser is, right?
Yeah.
Who's the most skilled? and focus on that. So I went to Johnson O'Connor Research Foundation in LA, and I did this on my own dime. I stayed at this terrible hostel close to Skid Row.
Okay.
It was the most dangerous place I've ever been, to get tested for 2 days on what I would be good at. And shockingly, I was not good at the things I thought I'd be good at. They had me move these needles with tweezers to like these little holes as fast as I could. There was a group of 3 of them, I remember, and you only can pick one. And they would time me with a stopwatch, and I would move just one, and then I'm like, I was flying. And the person's like, okay, how do you think you did? I'm like, I think I did really good. He's like, you were actually in the bottom 5th percentile. Like, you did bad. So they kind of told me, look, things that involve fine motor skills, like doctor or surgeon, probably should avoid, right? But I spent these 2 days, and it was remarkable what my results, because they compared to thousands of people. So before I went and got my second master's, again, something I don't suggest most people do, I want to know what I'd be really good at. So that begs the question, Alema, what would you know, looking back at your life, and I'm not assuming you can answer that now, but your acres of diamonds, what are they now?
Oh man, that is such a great question. In getting into the media space, I really enjoy storytelling. In fact, I was thinking of a story as you were kind of sharing your the acres of diamonds analogy. There's a parable of the stonecutter. Have you ever heard that before?
Remind me. Yes, I have. But
So there's a stonecutter who's doing his job. You know, he's up in the mountains. He's cutting into a mountain, collects stones, and he's just not happy with where he's at, his career path. He goes into the village and he sees a prince being carried, and he's like, man, I want to be a prince. God grants him his wish. He becomes a prince. Then he sees a palace, and he sees that there's a king in the palace. He's like, oh, I don't want to be a prince. I want to be a king. Becomes a king. During a hot summer day, as the king's celebrating, he's like, dude, this sun is beating on me right now. And he looks up at the sun. He's like, look at the sun, just unforgiving, just relentless, always there. I want to be the sun. Becomes the sun. There's a cloudy day, and the sun is completely cut off from the ground. And so he's like, look at these clouds. They're completely obstructing my view. I want to be these clouds. Becomes the clouds. And these clouds, you know, he sees the peak of a mountain cutting through the clouds, right? And he says, I want to be that mountain. The mountain, you know, he's like, who is a stonecutter? A stonecutter cutting it, making these tunnels through this mountain. He's like, I want to be, and basically the story of the, or what do you call it? The lesson of the story is that, you know, you don't take your place for granted, right? What your perspective in that very moment may be very different as you take these different career paths and you realize, man, I should have just stayed where I was at. Man, maybe that's not the right lesson to be learned, but more so going along with what you said, that
it's assuming he's the best stonecutter, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. The best stonecutter, or maybe he was a talented stonecutter who just saw that the green was grass around the other side and it wasn't as green as he thought it was, right? So there is that kind of resonated with me, because I think there is a lot of envy maybe, or jealousy, or even just longing for something that's going to bring fulfillment, and that causes us to chase things that maybe we're not actually suited for and we weren't built for, you know?
You just are forcing it potentially, whatever that perception is of that thing.
Exactly. And I think that happens a lot with our career paths where, you know, we want to make a lot of money, so we become, you know, AEs at a
that's it. Yeah, you go work for SDR and then you become an AE. And that's fine. Like within embedded into sales is the skill set of being trusted, being influential, knowing how to negotiate. If you're really, really good at it, or you may find like you're a really good leader. Like if you're in a leadership position and all of a sudden you understand, like, I'm really good at running a team. Those are things, I mean, we can't expect ourselves to know exactly what we're good at, but I do think there's breadcrumbs along the way. So if you look back at your life, you may have received awards, you may have received recognition, you may have received feedback telling you you're good at something, but I bet you could find something that you're probably good at. I would say, I usually start with transcripts. Like, let's just pretend I pull up your transcripts. Tell me what would I see? What classes would you excel in? Like right now I go, okay, you have these grades dating all the way back to kindergarten. What would you say your top grades are in?
Oh man.
Or even a subject that came easy to you.
Yeah. I remember, so my Book of Mormon class that I took at BYU was one of my favorite classes to write in, because it was, I wasn't bound by the traditional Christian dogmas that exist out there in the world.
Yeah,
I was able to explore outside of those things, go outside of the
You
lines.
mentioned that same thing for my class. There's a common theme here.
Common theme, yeah, exactly. So, and I remember I wrote this paper on the atonement, and I was like, man, I'm diving into stuff that I'm expounding on it. Like, I'm exploring these other ideas, and my professor really loved that paper too. And so, I mean, that there was, again, it was a kind of along the same lines of like storytelling.
Were you good at it though? It seems like you were good at it.
I think so.
You made connections that other people probably couldn't see, and a novel idea. So based on just that information, what you're doing is actually very well suited for that skill set, where you're in a media, you're producing storytelling, making connections where other people. But it's now, how do you take it to the next level?
Exactly, and that's the biggest question now with us is finding a way, because right now it's just resources. It's a matter of resources, having editors, having the software, having the technology, having the cameras, like, and then having the time to really invest in all of that.
If you knew this were to succeed, would you even hesitate to put in the time? If you knew this were the path that was going to take you where you wanted to go,
I wouldn't hesitate.
You wouldn't hesitate, right? But you're smart to like see how it's going to take. I think one of the things that's tough is how much time are you going to give it before you determine if this is going to work, right?
Exactly.
And you're creative, like you're a strategy guy, like, but think back also, what subjects came easy to you? Like you could sit down and be like, I understand the material. It doesn't require me to think too hard.
Quite honestly, I think philosophy.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're starting to see, how come it resonated? Do you know what it was?
I think because for me, I've always felt like I've been, and I don't mean this to gas myself up at all. It's more so I think I've been a jack of all trades when it comes to exploring different ideas like politics, religion, business. That like I can maintain a conversation with someone about something because I'll ask good questions for the most part because I'm genuinely curious. Like I want to know like what a person's perspective is on something and why they're motivated by that and what is like what's influential to them. Like, what do I need to share with you in order to feel like you're being convinced?
So there's a social component too that
you're
able to say, okay, there's a puzzle here that I can piece together. Are you able to then write or create something compelling out of what people can see as disjointed elements? Are you able to create some cohesion there?
I think so. And I've tried to with some of the recent content that I've released where I'm exploring so for instance, I'll share with you really quick about, I feel like a lot of people have fallen into this chasm of like dogma. Ideas or beliefs that have never been questioned, but have existed for so long that they become foundational to the way that you see the world.
You really got to read 1984 now.
Okay, maybe I need to reread it. Yeah, so
it's gonna make you. We've got to talk about it on your next episode. Yeah,
yeah. It's the idea that there's things that we presuppose to be true and to be grounded in reality that are actually not. And it kind of follows with the deconstructionist worldview where you break them down to their parts and you question the validity or the veracity of those things. And then once you put it back together, it looks much different than how it was before, right? So I think this is mostly applicable to religion because there are a lot of dogmas that exist in all of our religions, not just LDS, but also Christian, Islam. There's a lot of things that if they were questioned more critically, I think we'd have a much more coherent and comprehensible idea of what reality is.
And I think it makes you examine things and think critically. And I think a lot of people think education is about getting you a job, but in reality, it was always designed to help people think critically, unless you're a trade school or you went to medical school. The whole attempt or original idea behind education was to help people think critically. And I think we're losing that. I think everybody wants to know what's the ROI on this, right? Like, what does this get me? Like, what kind of job can I get? Really wasn't designed to be that way. We've kind of morphed it into that though. Like, what's the graduation rate, and then what's the job, placement rates? But in reality, thinking critically is the skill. But yeah, I think so. Coming back to that, the dogma piece, I think you have a lot of passion about questioning and persuading, or at least presenting ideas in a way that gets people to think differently.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's insightful, right? Inspirational. Yeah, and when you think of football itself, like we're all like our acres of diamonds are right there.
Yeah.
What were you really good at on the football team besides the actual, like, were you good at like analyzing film? Were you good at like being able to like predict what's going to happen before it happens?
Oh, that's a great question. I think early in my career, I relied a lot on my athletic ability, but later on, it became more. Gosh, there was maybe two things that I'll mention. One, I think culture fit was something that I did really well. So the social side that you had mentioned, just being able to.
You understood.
Yeah, I understood that this culture, the culture that you build in the locker room is important to building a culture of winning and embracing sacrifice and doing what's necessary for victory, So that I understood that part, but I also knew that you got to have fun, because if you don't have fun, then
it's not even,
there's no passion. Yeah, there's no passion and there's no
University
desire.
of Utah they didn't seem like they were having too much fun. Transactional.
It's very transactional. Okay. So I would think it was the culture fit, and then two, absorbing information and knowing what was useful and what wasn't, because there was a lot of things. I was never really taught the game of football. I don't know if you've heard this, but I didn't know like cover 3, cover 2. I was playing high school ball, just
you guys,
looking
like,
at one
bottle
person.
Caps on the ground to like run around.
I never like understood these concepts like to their core, like
Okay.
like the, what do you call that? The basic tenets of defenses, offenses. I had to learn all of that in college, and even then, my coaching staff didn't. Their biggest thing was just know your responsibility. You don't need to know what's going on behind you. But I'm someone who wants to know what's going on behind me to see the reason why I need to perform this specific responsibility. And so that translated over to my professional career, where I'm okay. Why am I doing it this way if the AEs that I'm setting for aren't going to move these meetings forward and count towards my quota?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What's the criteria?
So you're a solution guy in the broader context of things. You want to be able to understand how the system works and why it works in order to make better decisions about what you're currently doing.
Exactly right. That's exactly right.
Which is where the dogma comes in, right? Like, I want to understand this whole concept so I can justify, so I can make better sense of actions or new actions that I adopt and help people do the same.
Exactly. And the biggest reason was because I could not defend a system that was purely based off of tradition or what do you call that? Arbitrary expectation.
Just do it because you're told.
Yeah.
And that's not you.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as far as skills go, like, what do you know you're skilled at? Whether it's people mentioned it to you, you know that if you took a national exam or a national test, right now you would score in the top 20%. Do you have that in mind? Like, what you would actually just be good at?
I took a test. I took a test that showed, it was based off of like your motivations for why you do things. And the top 2 was logic and relationships. And the logic side, obviously, breaking things down and trying to understand them. But then the relationship sides was, I find like my relationships with people to be very important. And so I show up, I'm dependable, I'm reliable. I may not be the best at what I do, but you're going to get the 110%, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure that I perform to the best of my ability for you, Yeah,
interesting that you're the oldest in your family. And like some research that I think you would find interesting is the soldiers that were awarded the Medal of Honor, which is the highest, honor you can get. And it's not usually it's not how many people you kill, it's how many people you save, protect. They found that people who get that award are typically firstborn.
No way. That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I think they found that they have this natural ability to like be there, protect, shelter, and show up in a way like you're mentioning, which is, you can count on me, I'll be there. Is that like, maybe the research resonates, but I thought that was interesting research about the people who get that award are typically firstborn, which I thought, because they just are more inclined to have that characteristic, I guess.
I don't doubt that for a minute. I think that's and again, I don't know if I perfectly embody those characteristics, but I can definitely see with people around me who are older siblings, they bear a lot of responsibility naturally, right? It's kind of the natural position that they're put in, being the oldest sibling, taking care of younger siblings, carrying out the orders of their parents.
Yeah, again, I'm second born, so I'm more likely to go to prison. I think that's the research. But I think they did the study at Harvard too. I think the justice class, the most popular class at Harvard, he said, how many of you are firstborn? Like 80-something%. He goes, yeah, that's at the lines with the research. So it showed up even some of the academic achievements we see. I don't know. You already have an advantage, right? Like you already have.
I guess that's what they keep telling me.
But the point is go at like skill set, like find out what you would be gifted at or what you are gifted at, your acres of diamonds, and triple down, quadruple down on that thing and go all in, and things tend to work out.
Yeah.
Like people have skill sets, and I think oftentimes they're not positive what they are. So we're guessing at an early stage in life what we want to do for the rest. But in reality, it's hard to know. But
well, and to go along with your point, I think it's because everyone has already an expectation or preconceived notion, right? That we're all trying to measure up to. But if we would just get rid of those dogmas in our lives, or in our lives,
hey,
you know what I mean?
There we go. There we go. Like, yeah, these accepted beliefs, challenge that, right?
Yeah.
Because what you think is true may not actually be true.
And I have to be careful too, because there's a reason why certain foundational systematic things are in place, and they're important to build off of, right? Again, there's the if you take that to the extreme where you deconstruct everything, you're really left with nothing. You're left in this nihilistic view of, well, nothing matters then. I just should. You know what I mean? And that's where I feel like BYU does a good job at trying to combat this, because they try to instill purpose. But looking at my friends and colleagues who have gone to other universities and such, where again, it's not like this all around, but they do tend to come across these ideas of, man, I've broken this down to its core parts, and I don't like what I see. Nothing matters now. You know?
Let me ask you a direct question. This is more of an observation. One being a professor of many college athletes, football players,
sure,
and just me looking at the team from a different over the years, right? Love and learning, right? Do you there was a game in Coastal Carolina during COVID, right? Like were you there at that game?
I was not at that game.
Okay, so you guys traveled all the way out there, and they kind of punched us in the mouth. They were like, they were there to fight, straight up fight. I thought in the second half we'd come back and punch them back. Like do you ever feel like the love and learning culture? Sometimes you just need to come fight. And do you feel like that culture? I mean, of course, athletes are athletes. They're competitive. They're physical. Sometimes I think the edge that I want to see from the BYU football team, like at Texas Tech this last weekend, there was a fight. They came ready to fight, straight, like they were going to fight, put fish hooks in people's mouth. Like they were going to win this fight. I didn't feel like we matched that level of intensity. Love and learning, is that at odds sometimes with getting out there and shedding that a little bit to you got to be ready to brawl? Am I wrong on that?
I don't think you're wrong, but I think there's the intention behind the love and learning philosophy was that
I like it. It's cohesive, right?
It's about cohesion.
It's a higher level of
and always
purpose.
always looking, because one of the biggest lessons that I ever picked up from football was that you don't look at the last play, you look at the next.
Yeah, you move forward and
the phrase was, the only thing you take from the last play is the lesson. That's the only thing that you take from it. And I think that's where the learning side comes in with the philosophy that they're implementing at BYU, right? And then the love, love can be
for each other,
love for the game.
Right. Let's not step on their throats when we're up ahead and we know we won. Let's not let's not score a touchdown. Like there's a little bit of that. But I kind of want the
chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do. And I feel like sometimes we're being nice and kind sometimes could be seen as a weakness in sport.
Yeah.
The objective is to win, but not by as close a margin as you can think. Like you want to win by a convincing margin.
Well, let me ask you, and let me ask you a question, because I completely agree with what you're saying. I also see programs who have implemented that cutthroat, just, hey, we step on everyone and anyone that comes across our.
And that sounds really antithetical to what BYU stands for.
No. But it's competition.
It's
competition. And if you want to be good.
Intensity is what I think about.
Intensity.
Intensity.
I've seen programs that maybe not fully embody exactly what you're saying, but to some degree what you're saying. And they have problems on the team.
Yeah.
There is this idea of, okay, I'm just going to do whatever it takes to win then, even if it's...
Yeah, you can push too far.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that is just the condition of mortality where we stray from the original intentions of what it should be, and then we push it to its absolute extremes to see where it leads.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that leads to a national championship. But then you see, my favorite example is the Florida team.
Yeah.
The Florida team with Tim Tebow, Aaron Hernandez,
Oh, yeah.
and
I remember that.
Percy Harvin, all those
Yep.
guys. A lot of those guys got locked up because of that. I don't know. Now I don't know if it's the
Think
chicken.
it could be related.
Yeah, I don't know if it's related. It could be did the chicken come before the egg, or did the egg come for the chicken? Like, where did people who have that natural mindset gravitate to a program like that, or did that program shape them into that mindset? You know what I mean?
There's a balance. You're trying to strike this conformity and culture, but also you want the achiever, individualistic, want to be on the top of the podium mentality. Sometimes I just feel, watching it from my perspective, seeing like it doesn't breed the intensity that's needed to really get to that level where, look, if they come out ready, you have to match. You have to match. Anyway, my observation, my 2 cents on the matter, because I watched it for a long time, and it was right before halftime when Zach Wilson just kept getting pummeled.
Yeah, and no one defended him.
Yeah, and he was a student of mine at that time, and I thought, I mean, there's a lot of things we can look at in that, but I thought they would come out swinging.
Yeah,
I thought BYU's going to come out swinging. They realized what this fight was, and I felt like they didn't. They didn't do it, and I thought, missed. Let's shed the love and learning and just win, and we'll love winning.
Yeah.
And this sounds so bad, but at the same time, what I see sometimes is conformity and culture at the expense of, we're here to win.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. I don't disagree in any point that you've brought up.
Did you ever feel like that was, you had to compromise a little bit of that edge that got you to that point?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. But you know what
How?
I think did some of that was my mission.
Yeah, it kind of said,
I feel like my mission kind of softened me up a little bit.
Yeah, kind of took those edges off that rock a little.
Yeah, I mean, there was one time in like my second year of football at BYU where it was right after my mission, and I just got blown up, and I'm like, I don't know if I love this game as much as I thought I did, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I remember Kalani Sitake on a ES, I can't remember what talk show he was on, but they said, you have advantages because these guys are older, they're more mature. And he's like, look, if going on missions worked, Alabama would do it. There is something that's lost on a mission. I came home and I didn't have that same edge too, in some ways. I don't know what it was, but yeah, I felt it too.
I think it's a common
So you're saying
phenomenon.
It could be related to that too?
I think so. I think that, and then when you're surrounded by, an environment that pushes for spirituality, forgiveness, pushes for loving others, loving your enemies.
Right.
I mean, it's hard to because when you're on the field, no matter how you try to characterize the gospel, it kind of gets tossed to the side
at this point.
Exactly.
And then 36% or 30% or so in the Book of Mormon is about war.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is where we're at.
You had to fight for what you loved,
That's
you know? And so I think we oftentimes forget that. But the other thing is that we're trying to balance between the competitive nature and then the Christ-like disciple.
And you guys are probably one of the nicest teams to play. Like, these guys help each other up. They probably you guys are role models.
Some of them.
Yeah, maybe not other. I know who those students are too. But they do their best to curb some of that edge. At the same time, I think that could be, tilt the scales or tip the scales in that favor of I just don't see the intensity like I see matched, or they don't match it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's good. You stay in control, but at the same time, when the team has control and intensity, I don't think we match up well.
Yeah, I think anywhere you go, it takes a special player to embody that, and then also have non-field issues.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It takes a special kind of player that
can rein that in.
Yeah, that can rein it in, and has enough self-awareness to know, okay, I'm getting a little bit out of hand. Social life needs to get fixed up, but also I need to be tough on the field and go kick this guy's ass, So
and just pummel.
Yeah,
and it's okay. This is where it's okay to do that, to demoralize people.
No, yeah, I love where this conversation has gone. By the way, I think this has been a really, really interesting one. I do want to close with a question that. So, just taking a look at your professional career, maybe just your life in general. Has there ever been a point where you've had a regret that if you could talk to yourself in that moment, what changes would you make?
So, going back and looking at your stage or any stage?
Any stage at all, yeah.
Yeah, I often think about this. I think you're a logic guy. So this is going to sound interesting. I had opportunities early on in my career to work at really good companies, but someone took a shot on me here in Utah, and I felt loyal to that person. And I remember passing up an opportunity, I think it was to work at Google once. And it would have done wonders for my career. It's such a hard company to get into. But this company in Utah, not really. I think it's gone bankrupt since. But this person took a chance on me, and I thought I owed them. I just barely had started, or I came back to this company. I was 2 months in, and to leave it to go to Google, I thought it felt selfish. But in reality, like, sometimes I think this is going to be somewhat antithetical to what you said, which is my loyalty, I think, got in the way of good judgment, good logic. When you break it down to its most component part, like when you look at that opportunity I had, I should have absolutely seized it. And because in the end of the day, this company, this person, they weren't loyal to me at all. Yeah, they took a shot. But at the same time, you have to be ruthless and aggressive, intense, let's say intensity, about how you manage your own life and career. And looking back, one, enjoy the moments you have, because it's always hard when you're in the trough, when you're in the valley, to be optimistic and to enjoy. Like, you just want to get out of it. But in reality, like we call it in leadership development, charismatize the routine. You called it fun. We call it charismatize. The academic term I think it's coined is charismatize the routine. Bring magic to the mundane. Like, make life interesting for people on an everyday basis, because if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. At the same time, be ruthless and aggressive about how you manage your own life. Because as you become more successful, people will want pieces of you. They want time, they want a lot of, and you're going to have to like get good at saying no, but delicately, but seize opportunities as they come. Be okay with it. Be okay with being a little selfish about your own happiness and career, because you're going to have a bigger impact on society, on your family, if you can fill your own tank up, right? Like what they say, you can't really fill up other people's canisters unless yours is full.
Right.
You have to remember that. Like, you will be giving and giving things away, and at the end of the day, they'll probably be the same people that criticize you for not giving more. Like, focus on those opportunities. But I let some of that stuff get in my way, where I thought, I kind of convinced myself I had some higher standard or something. Oh, they took a chance. Like, I don't do that to people. But in reality, I probably should have sought for my own. Because now trying to get a job at Google, like, because I've become successful in my own career, to jump over there it'd probably be impossible at this point, because they promote from within. And it was, at the time, it was an entry level job. But I regret it. I regret not seizing opportunity as it came.
So looking back on that moment where you regretted not taking that opportunity, how does that carry over to what you do now? And because right now, from what I can see, you're very much concerned about your students, making sure that they're fully equipped to communicate professionally or in professional settings effectively.
Right.
How does that carry over to your mission now and what you're doing?
I think, well, I'll just tell you, I'll shine a light on selfishness for a second. Like, you're not going to say this, you're not going to be like, oh, you're making this about the students. I'm actually going to frame it for you differently.
Okay.
I use the classroom to help students, yes. But just to go along with the theme, I use it as a platform to test new content for my other world, right? For my training world, I write articles, I'm trying to write a book. And so I'm constantly testing on the students this material, because I also want it to come back to me in some form. Now, I'm not looking at it as a one-for-one, I need this to serve me. But at the same time, I'm saying they'll take as much as they can get. At the same time, what can I gain? And so I'm always testing interesting ideas on them. And then they benefit because I get to introduce content to them, but I also need it to serve my professional world. And I don't call that a non-professional world. It is, but it's kind of a thing I do, passion project, but also like it's a playground that I can test things on.
Interesting. Okay. So that's, it's an environment where you're able to put to the test these new concepts that you've come across. And
I refine my writing, I refine my ability to speak, and I make sure if my content doesn't hold in the classroom, like I call it storm-proofing your content, I can expose weaknesses in my own stuff with the classroom. How many people get that opportunity to test out things.
Not often.
Right. And so like in some ways I'm ruthless like if it doesn't serve me in some ways, which is going to sound selfish, I try not to engage because you're so limited on the time you have.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's fun to meet people like you. It's fun to have students in the class. But at the same time, it's not altruistic. It's not, I'm just giving. I try to use it as a way that also I get better at my craft. And so hopefully that doesn't diminish me.
No, not at all.
Like you think, oh, like, because I do try to help students and I'm very there for my students at the same time.
Yeah.
I try to make sure my skill set's constantly being elevated.
Yeah, no, I agree with you because I think, and one of the most important lessons that I've learned from football was the process of self-improvement and finding validity in the processes that you adopt and the what do you call it, the habits that you build.
Yeah.
And so I'm fully on board with that, and I can see how in the classroom setting with young minds who bring different ideas and different solutions to old problems would be the perfect environment for breeding that creativity.
And I asked them, did this work? Did this land? What do you remember? And I always pick up, you remember that for some reason. So I kind of hone in on that story and I refine it and make it better and see if it still works with other audiences. So,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, even this is a good opportunity. Not only is it exposure and we get to reconnect because you've always been a student I've admired, but I get a chance to I usually come up with new insights that I didn't think about with content that I'm trying to make in moments like this. Because we often don't put ourselves in a situation where we have to think. And
no,
I do that.
I agree. People have fragile frameworks that they use to digest information and the world around them. And for me, fragility in my life means an inability to provide for my family or, you know what I mean? So I want to build a very strong foundation on the way that I process things outside, I'm not the best at doing it and I still make mistakes constantly, but I can at least say that there's some intentionality behind it, that I genuinely have this desire to build good processes, build solid foundation on something. And thankfully you have been a part of that process where you've helped us to think critically and
challenge those dogmas.
Yeah, challenge those dogmas.
Those mental schemas.
Exactly.
A lot of people don't want to go there. They don't. And I just think, well, what's the point of living? That's fun for me. If we don't challenge that stuff, I just find life to be a little bit boring.
It really would be. Well, Professor, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really enjoyed this conversation. For those of you who are tuning in to this week, guys, this is Professor David Smailes from BYU, teaches the MCOM class, communications class for our student athletes and also the non-student athletes. That's right. But Professor, I'm very thankful to have you here.
Likewise.
And hopefully have you on another episode in the future.
Yeah, I hope so too. Yeah, hopefully they enjoy it. All right, man.
Guys, this is the Unfiltered Talk podcast episode. Who knows? You guys have a great rest of your night. Take care.